I'm here to talk about the power of archetype work in self development. Archetype work works. And if you're watching this, you're at least curious about archetype work, or you're like, what even is this? YouTube recommended me this random video and I'm going to click on it because the thumbnail was great. Firstly, I love that you love the thumbnail. Thank you very much. Secondly, archetype work is something that for me years ago, when I was diving into lots of different forms of self development, but beyond just reading these like self help books and understanding myself more through psychology, I started to learn about archetypes and the power of using them to help change our thoughts and our patterns, actions, basically to change our life. The thing was, I didn't really get it. I was like, what? Like, am I pretending to like be someone else? Am I pretending to be some character? Like, what is it? I'm going to break it down for you in really simple, relatable terms and share with you like what really clicked for me about archetype work and why I believe now this is such a powerful way to to develop yourself, to expand yourself, to release limiting ways of being. So powerful that I wrote a book on it. And I will get to that later as well. Archetype work is essentially using stories, using meaning through characterization to understand ourselves more. What I mean by that is there's a specific concept, there's a specific idea. I'm going to give you the example that's just from my book, the goddess archetypes. We have the archetype of Durga, of Kali, of Lakshmi, of any goddess you choose. It doesn't have to be from philosophy or religion. You could also do the archetype of Mickey Mouse and do archetype work around that. Really, it's about using these labels. So, the labels of the goddess in this case, but also sometimes archetype work is often the lover archetype. If you've ever heard of this kind of language before, in my retreats, I've also done 4 feminine archetypes of maiden, wild woman, wise woman, and mother archetype. And yeah, super powerful work there as well. So basically, it's just using the concept, the figure of the archetype we're using to understand the energy that this figure represents. So this figure might represent playfulness, sassiness, really like loudness. Like if we're I actually don't know much about Mickey Mouse, so I can't tell you the attributes of Mickey Mouse archetype. But let's say Mickey Mouse is really crazy and playful. Let me know in the comments if I'm correct with that. Um, then that is the archetype of Mickey Mouse. And if we're doing archetype work, we're learning how to access these energies more and think, okay, this figure embodies these energies, and I want to embody more of these energies. How can I learn from this archetype, this figure, this expression of energy? Put a bunch of words to it, it means the same thing. How can I learn from that and bring that into my life in a practical way? That's what I mean by archetype work. And that's what I believe is meant by archetype work. I'm sure there are other explanations for it, but for me, this is what really stuck because I realized, oh, I'm just finding a relatable way to understand a certain way to express yourself in the world through this figure, through this term, through this word. And then that gives me something to reference, that gives me something to relate to when I want to harness more of that energy for myself and be more of that for myself. It allowed me to condense ideas more into a more focused space when doing archetype work rather than thinking, I want to be able to set boundaries, but I also want to be like super intuitive. I want to be able to connect with my intuition. I want to stop second guessing myself. I also want to, be like more sensual and like there's so many things that you might want to be and that you might want to access in terms of your energy expression, and potentially you already know where your blocks are, you already know where you want to grow more, but it feels like a lot. It could feel overwhelming. And that's why archetype is so powerful, because you segment these expressions of energy into their own concepts, their own figures, or in the case of my book, their own goddesses. So I use goddess archetypes in my book, Grounded Goddess, to basically explore and explain ways that you can show up in the world. And then I give real world practices, journal prompts, exercises, just ways that you can reimagine how you can show up in your life to basically just expand your expression, to show up more you, to show up less limited, to not feel small, to not feel like you're holding yourself back. Here's an example. I use Saraswati, Durga, Lakshmi, and Kali as a way to explain how there's such a spectrum of energy that you can express yourself with. So there is masculine and more feminine frequency, but I share that it is really a scale. I've shared this in a few other YouTube videos as well, basically about like redefining what masculine and feminine is. And yeah, I really recommend that you go and check that out. Just look through my library and you'll see all of these other explanations of these energies. And I share about it in my book. But for now, I just want to share that these ways that you can express these goddesses kind of fall along different parts of the spectrum. So, for instance, we have Saraswati. She's all the way up the light end of the spectrum. She is a little bit more spiritual, imaginative. She's about intuition, creativity, being in the flow. She's like the opposite to schedules and routine. And being able to access this part of us that is like highly creative and highly attuned to our intuition is something that I think a lot of people are struggling with. A lot of women really want to connect with more deeply. So I talk about the energy of Saraswati and then practices and journal prompts you can do to explore why you might feel blocked in this area, where that block could be coming from, and how to start expressing this more. On the flip side of that, if we look at the opposite end of the spectrum, we would have the Kali goddess archetype. And she is like, if Saraswati is serene and peaceful and soft, then Kali is like crazy, scary. Often people think of her as like evil, but she's really not. All of the goddesses, all of us in a healthy way to be expressed in the world, serve love. We are here to serve more love, more peace, more expansion. And Kali does that too. Even though even the figure of Kali, if you look at imagery of her, she's like pretty grotesque and she looks almost more like a creature than a goddess. She is the goddess of birth and death, rebirth, death, endings, destruction, but it's in order to bring forth newness. It's in order to make space for creation. And it's only through knowing our truth and it's only through trusting ourselves and our intuition, so our Saraswati side, it's only through knowing that and having a strong connection to that, can we even know when the right time is to end something, to leave something, to let our Kali come through and cut the things that don't serve us anymore in our lives. A lot of people are a little bit afraid of this Kali energy. They're afraid of ending things. They're afraid of the change that comes along with it. They're afraid of creating potential chaos. And again, in my book, I explain why generally the fear of Kali is what creates the most chaotic and unhealthy expression of Kali, the most chaotic, toxic, unhealthy ways that we actually end things in our lives. We put it off, we repress this energy, we don't listen to our intuition, our gut feeling, our truth. When something is no longer right for us, we stay there for too long, and generally more conflict and chaos is created. And it's simply because we didn't embrace our Kali side to be like, no more. The Kali needs Saraswati. That energy within us needs also the opposite energy within us because it's not really opposite, it's complementary. This is everything that I explained in the book. And this is something that I'm so passionate about because it's such a, if you have a brain like mine that likes to kind of segment things, characterize things, have certain meaning stories and label to things, and it really helps you understand more, then this is such a a great thing for you to explore, just archetype work in general. If you're watching this before May 2024, then you can get my book for the special launch price. After May 20, I'm going to increase the prices to its regular price, but for now, it's actually a little bit cheaper. And I encourage you to go check it out. You can get it on Kindle for a very low investment. It's like $3.99, I think, on Kindle in the US. And then you can also get a paperback or hardcover version if you're someone who likes the physical books as well. If you're curious to explore more of feminine embodiment, how masculine and feminine energy is expressed within us, and how to basically just rest and relax into yourself more, feel more you, then check out my other videos. Come over at Instagram and check out my work there. I have new things happening all of the time. And also check out my book. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you soon.